welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. During this presentation, everybody is muted. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the bottom of the chat or the Q&A. And then at the end, Phil will answer questions that pop up during the webinar. This is Phil Vitale, and he is our presenter today. He is the editor of the award-winning Pocket Change newsletter for the Albuquerque Coin Club. He's the A&A district rep for New Mexico and El Paso. And Phil has presented several e-learning seminars and summer seminar bull sessions as well. So you've got somebody that's very skilled here and ready to pass on your information. He's going to be telling you about making a great newsletter revisited, because you've done this before, right? Something similar?
I have done it before.
And you've updated. So Phil, it is all yours.
Hey, very good. Thank you so much, Paula.
Thank you.
For everybody there, thank you very much for tuning in. I am from the Albuquerque Coin Club, and I take great pride in that. We are a great club, and Pocket Change is my baby. I enjoy it. I work really hard at it, and I've been thankfully, very successful at it. So we're going to get started here. Why am I doing it? Well, I did this in May of 2020. I did this presentation, and amazingly, since I did it in 2020, 270 people have viewed the original presentation, and interest is still pretty strong. I've added a little bit of a broadened perspective and content, and I'm going to tell you about a number of different things and answer any questions that I had, and continue to provide you with a venue to answer your questions in the future. So I believe, and this is sort of something that has proved true, that club newsletters are part of the glue that keeps us together. Keeping in touch with all of your members makes them want to continue to be part of your club. The other thing is that each club's different, and they have different needs. So the things that I'm showing you today are the basics on what you need to do, but not a formula on how you need to do it. So there is no formula. I want you to keep that in the back of your head, and if I have an idea that works for you, please steal it. I have no pride of authorship here as far as ideas go. And if I can help you all to be first place in the newsletter competition every year, I will be thrilled. There's also really sort of three types of newsletter: local club newsletters, regional newsletters, and online. They all have different challenges, but there's really some common threads that puts them together. And each of the newsletters, regardless of what type you have or support, can benefit from good practices and processes. I know that I have evolved my newsletter over the time, and I've been doing it for 7 years now. And I look back at what I started doing and said, gee, I wish I had done this better way back when. So we'll talk about some of the aspects and practices and processes and what you can do, and maybe what you shouldn't do. All right, so the basics before we get too far along are, what are we doing and why? I think it's really, really important for you to think about, what are your objectives? So you have to ask yourself a question: what do you want your newsletter to do? I sort of broke it up into three things. You can use your newsletter to inform your membership and other people. You can use your newsletter to educate them. How can we continue to keep our readership interesting. And really, you can use your letter to market. Not so much selling a product, except for selling you and your club. So we're going to talk about every one of these things. Okay. So, of course, you want to tell your club people and anybody else who reads your newsletter about what your club activities are. We do a picnic and shows and displays, and we have different guys who do accomplishments like the diploma program, etc. And we want to tell people about them. It makes a lot of sense. I don't recommend you including auction lists in your newsletter. Why? Because you have to wait till the last minute, number one. And number two, it takes up a lot of real estate. What I've done in the past is I've added an extra insert into my newsletter at the last minute when I send it to the printer to talk about what's going to be on the auction. If you have an auction, that is. So we also want to provide club information. We want to tell people who the club officers are, when we meet, where do we meet, what the format is, what the elements that you can expect to see. Surprise is not necessarily good in this arena. And I think also, most importantly, we want to provide a calendar of events. What's coming up? What shows are coming up? What seminars are coming up? What speakers are going to be speaking at your meetings? What is it that you want the people to know? So, when you're putting your newsletter together, I recommend that you allocate space for this type of information. Whether you want to write articles or not on the club activities, it is important to know who your officers are and what's happening, where you're expecting to go. So, all right. So here's a copy of the first page of my September newsletter. I want to point out something, and I'll point out again, but we talk about what we've done, a lead article, and the people involved, and what the special points of interest might be in the newsletter. And then we have a table of contents. All of the really good newsletters that I've seen have a table of contents, so people who don't want to read the whole newsletter or are interested in certain things can get the information that they want. Additionally, in the information part, we have what our address is, where we meet, when we meet, what time, and we have information on the board of directors and the newsletter itself. Now, a lot of guys say, I don't want to put out information on who the officers are. Well, don't. It's your newsletter. It's your newsletter, and you can decide what you include and what you don't include. I had one club editor that says, oh, the club members are worried that if we put their information on there, they'll get robbed. Well, so the answer is don't do it. Provide somebody that they can call to get information if they need it. But don't include those type of information things that you don't want people to know. Like I said, there is no formula. This is ours. This is my formula that I do every month. Not necessarily your formula. Additionally, on near the back page, we've got a table of what's coming up you notice we have club meetings coming on. My club does Zoom meetings concurrently with in-person meetings. So we have members in 8 states, and people tune in on Zoom and participate in the meeting. I also talk about the ANA events and what's coming up out and about. I try and stay fairly reasonable, or excuse me, regional, because people don't necessarily want to know what's going to happen in Houston or in Maryland or whatever. Okay, so after information, the next big thing to decide is whether you want to educate your readers. Our club, like most clubs, like many clubs, I should say, have guys who have all types of expertise. And you can nudge them to write about their passions and educate people about, whether it be half cents, whether it be shipwreck treasure, whether it be ancient Roman coins, whatever. There's enough people out there with all types of expertise that you can tap. Additionally, we can talk about educational opportunities, seminars, symposiums, show presentations. My club is really, really active. Not all clubs are, but there's always opportunities for people to learn stuff. And then I always put in a summary of the presentations that we've had. I don't recreate them. That's not what the purpose is, but we want to tell people what other people did. And if they want to get a hold of the presenters, they can. So let's see. So here is a technical article that one of our guys wrote, and it's a really great article, by the way. Very educational about Tesla. And he was actually a great scientist. And if you're from Serbia, you see his picture on coins and bills all the time. But I never knew that this guy existed and what he did. And I'm amazingly impressed that in the late 1800s, he did all of these things. So it doesn't have to be yours, but you have opportunities to educate people. Okay, let's talk about marketing. It's really amazing how much interest you can have advertising your club with your newsletter. I bring a stack of black and whites to our shows and to the ANA ANA shows. And I bring a smaller stack of color issues. They go pretty quick. So, but you want to use these every show, every time we set out handouts for people using the show, using our newsletters. We always get potential members. We always get new people signing up. It keeps the club fresh to have a continuing string of new members. Additionally, as far as marketing goes, we are members of the ANA. We're an ANA club, as most of you are. And aside from pumping the ANA to further their educational charter, we want to tell people that there are opportunities for the summer seminar, national shows, and we provide some ANA news every issue so people know what's going on. It's a good thing. It gets a lot of interest. So let's see. Oh, so here's just a little piece that I did a few months ago when we talk about the summer seminar and we talk about the World Fair money coming up. And it's a little blurb. It's not a lot, but it primes people's interest into what's happening in the ANA. And, we should take advantage of a little bit of space to push the national organization. All right. So before we talk about how we make newsletters better, I want to talk about content a little bit. If I had to write the whole newsletter, I wouldn't do it. I do write some sections of the newsletter myself, but I solicit articles from club members and others. It's important to get people involved, and it's important to not have to write everything. I have our club members submit regular features. The ANA rep, the president, the secretary, the treasurer. So we can tell what our perspective is and report on things and speak to the people. It is really, really important that you always, and I mean always, retain the right to edit material. I have a number of people that I need to translate what they give me into English. I get all types of things, good things that are in fractured English that I have to ensure read right. Also, editing allows you to fit into space constraints, make corrections, and make sure articles are clear. Clarity is really important. I have people that come up and gives me an article and say, you can't change a word of my article. I say, Joe, I may have to make a correction or two, not a word. Then I go and I put it into English and they have no clue what I've done to fix it. So they're happy, I'm happy, but always retain the right to edit. Advertising. My club picks up the tab for all of the publication costs of my newsletter, which is really good. But most clubs have a necessity to defray publication costs by using advertising. If your club is using advertising in its newsletter, I encourage you to get help to work with the advertisers instead of you having to do it yourself. It's an extra chore. I personally spend about 20 hours a month putting my newsletter together. If I had to spend another 20 hours working with advertisers, I'd probably quit. So try and get help. And that was one of the reasons that we stopped doing advertising in our newsletter, because it took up space and I didn't have enough time to chase it. The other thing about doing advertising is maintain clear boundaries. Don't break up the text on a page. If you're going to put an ad in, don't put it in the middle of your page or the articles. Make sure that your advertisement is clean cut and has some type of boundary on it, so it doesn't bleed into what you want to say. Okay, so we're done with the basics, and now we're going to do what everybody wants. What you really want your package to do is you want people to read it. And you want people to want to read it. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about aesthetics and pictures and colors and all other types of things. The first thing we're going to talk about is format. It's important to have a clean, repeatable, clear section of breaks for your newsletter. And as I said before, include an index. If people see your newsletter and you have bits and pieces and different things in all different areas of your newsletter, people get lost. It's important that you do repeatable things, that people know that if they're going to pick up the pocket change, what is it they expect to see? Also, for font, pick one style and use it throughout. I'm not talking about titles of articles and sections, etc. You can individualize those, but as far as the format for your type throughout the newsletter, one style throughout actually makes it easier for people to see and read. Additionally, important, colors. If you can, do colors in your newsletter. It gets the attention and the reader's interest. It makes an impact if you can have color. So I said before, have an index. Here's a copy from my page. You'll see a page coming up that'll show, oh, and it's a proofreading work from my wife. It's a smart thing to do. We'll talk more about proofreading in a minute. So here is the champion of format. This is David Heinrich's newsletter, the Cincinnati Numismatist, and he kicks my butt in the newsletter competition almost every year, and he deserves it. As much as I hate to say it, he does a fabulous job every month. And you notice inside this issue, he has a little table of content, and he talks about where and when the meetings are, who's going to talk, etc. I can't say enough good things about David's work, but if you can do this, you are going to be way ahead. Color. So we're talking about April of 2020, and we're starting the pandemic, and we're shutting down our events and our meetings. And I talked about the phoenix rising from the flames. And if I tried to do this in black and white, it would not have the same effect. So judiciously pick things in colors that are going to enhance what it is you want the message you want to convey. So you notice down below, the picnic was canceled, the facilities, our club meetings, etc. And we went to all Zoom for a good, better part of a year. So it was important. So I'm an engineer, and I was not born with a spelling gene. If you're like me, you should worry about misspelling, incomplete sentences, wrong words, poor punctuation that will detract from your publication. I always tell everybody, beware of autocorrection. You'll be typing something and all of a sudden the computer says, I know what you want more than you know what you want. And they change words on you. It's especially important if you get somebody else to proofread your stuff. I can look at a page and look at a page and look at a page. And my wife is the pickiest grammatician and speller that you can ever find. And she does a wonderful job. I never publish a newsletter without having her go through it and showing me where I screwed up. I encourage each of you. I know David Heinrich's wife actually does the same for his newsletter. So do yourself a favor, get somebody else to look at your newsletter and help you along. It really is important. You want to make the right impression. You want to tell people that you're professional. And this is one of the ways to do it. People features. You know, when I started doing this, actually 8 years ago, or 7.5 years ago, I sort of put in little blurbs about members. And then I did an informal survey of the club membership. I was amazed that it wasn't the technical articles, it wasn't the club information. The most favored, or the most things that people said that they enjoyed most, were features on people. So I encourage you maybe to feature a little blurb on people, your members, or ANA members, or other people. The other thing that I'm sure you know is people like to see pictures of themselves. I always strive to include pictures of authors and presenters where I have the space to do it. The people who are reading the newsletter want to see who's writing the stuff. And the people who are writing the stuff like to see their picture there to identify what they've done. And it's good. This little feature came out last month on one of our members, Jason Elwell, who also happens to be the president of the El Paso Coin Club. And he's a great guy, making lots of good stuff happen down there. And I was happy to share a profile of him with the rest of the membership. This is a summary of one of our guys' work on the very first coins coming out of Lydia 700 years ago. Well, excuse me, 2,700 years ago. Did a great job, and we included a summary of what he did and his picture, and everybody appreciates it. Okay, so here's the thing that makes the difference, big difference. Publishing software aids layout and appearance. There's no way that I could do my newsletter without Microsoft Publisher. You could use other. PageMaker works well. Other guys use other software, etc. It allows you to lay out mixed things on pages. You can put photographs, you can put text, you can put little boxes, you can put illustrations and tables. Just impossible to do with straight word or the other word processing software. Additionally, if you want to do well, you need photo editing software. It lets you adjust your photos to your needs. That's a big deal. I suggest that you use something simple like Photoshop Elements. You really don't need anything fancy. There are other programs, and in fact, Microsoft Word, or Windows, I should say, has a picture editing software built in. Not the greatest in the world, but you don't need something fancy for most of your stuff. You can do a lot with very basic things, and you're not striving to recreate the numismatist here. You're striving to talk to your constituents or your members. Another important thing is PDF editing software. A lot of times I'll get things from people that are PDFs, and I say, I don't want the whole article or the whole whatever. I just want the picture, or I want this text box, or I want whatever else. I find it's essential to have a PDF editing software. It's not expensive. I have been using Power PDF. There's others out there. In fact, I would venture to guess there's a dozen programs out there that don't cost much. I'm going to be changing Adobe, who made PDF, now allows you to get an expanded version of their PDF reader, where you could edit PDFs too. And it is really an extensive program, and it's not very expensive. You know, it's a one-time buy that lets you do all types of things, and it's very worthwhile. But you use what what works best for you. I'm just telling you what works best for me. Okay, so this is a page from a couple of months ago, talking about the mint and talking about the state fair that I use with, that I use with Publisher. And Publisher allows me to do everything I want to do. I don't know if I say this elsewhere, but most of your publishing software allows you to crop out the extraneous material. So here's a Confederate States $50, of which only 4 were made. And it had a area around it with other stuff. I don't want to put the other stuff. I just want the coin. I can cut it out and paste it using that software. And we talked about the other mints, and I have a picture of the guy who did it. Also, the state fair was coming that we just did, and we have several side groups. This one is really good. We Are Hammered is a group that looks at ancient coins, ancient and medieval coins. And we have several side groups that do these things in my club. Mouth's getting dry. So they say a picture says 1,000 words, and there's no doubt about it. You should have at least one picture or illustration on every page you publish. If you do, you make your newsletter a lot more interesting. If you want to do pictures of coins and notes, I encourage you to get them from the internet. You can pick up coins and notes that are not copyrighted, and they're much better than what you can take yourself. I used to do it all myself, and it took tremendous amounts of time, and they weren't always that good. So I know this is going to sound stupid, but place your photos close to where they're talked about, and keep your page balanced. I have a proofreading error. Careful. How did that go through? Anyway, so you'll forgive me, my engineer genes have screwed me up. As I said before, crop out your surrounding materials, 2x2s, other people, etc. You can do all types of things. So here's a page out of David's newsletter. And he has done amazing things, having coins and crests of arms and pretty clear section breaks, so you don't get lost. This is a really, really nice done page, and if you can manage to reproduce something like this for your newsletter, you're way ahead. Here's another one from one of my newsletters, and this guy, Ben Costello, is a lawyer, but he's also one of the main people in the 1715 Fleet Society that supports shipwreck coins from off the shores of Florida, where there's a whole bunch of them. Additionally, if you're really crafty, you can put a text box on your page and make it in white type so they don't see the box. It works out good for you. All right, so I'm probably talking way too fast and probably leaving out pieces and parts. But I want to tell you that you can get help. We have a newsletter editors group. And there's 3 primary guys, me, Paul Kluth, who does E-Goldbrick, which is a online, and Greg Burns. And Greg does a quarterly publication. Or is it, Greg, are you on? Anyway, either 3 or 4 times a year, he puts out the Cal Numismatist. And it's a really great publication. And we have an editors group that solely exists to share ideas and to help people make a better newsletter for everybody involved. So, in summary, what I want you to remember: determine your priorities for information, education, and marketing. If you know what you want, if your newsletter is just a report on the minutes of your meeting, that is good. There's nothing wrong with it. But decide that that's what it is you want. Invest some time to build a template you can use from month to month. Save yourself time and effort and allow the people to see and expect to see the same type of things every year, different material, but the same type of things from month to month. I encourage you all to invest a small amount of money in software to make your job easier. It really does make a difference, guys and ladies. Please, I encourage you to spend a little bit of money, and we're only talking a few $100 to do a better job. And I am at the end of what I have prepared. So we have questions, Paula?
Not yet. So if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and pop them into that chat box at the bottom, or the Q&A section. Either one is fine. I don't have any yet, Phil, but they were all muted, and I know you were seeing if somebody was here, but they can't talk back to you unless they want to chat right now. So I do want to say thank you for, let's see, there is a question.
Looks like we got a question.
I don't have, don't have it.
No?
It
Chat is disabled. I can't believe that.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
So I don't think we want to unmute, do we?
No, so let's see. Let's see. Please put the screen up of
How
the
about
newsletter
quick
emails.
Q&A? Hi,
Yeah. So I've got a couple things popping up here, Phil. Let's see. So Cassidy says, please put the screen up of the newsletter emails of the club.
Okay,
Or maybe
I can
you
do
go
that.
back on that one. And Greg just popped up. He says he can communicate with the Q&A. So if you wanted to talk directly to Greg. And then John says, I may have missed it, but what is the format of your newsletter?
All right, so we're going to first go to this page. First question. Who wants to see the page that talks about my club and when we meet, where we meet, when, club information, and the board of directors, and if you want to get involved with the Albuquerque Coin Club. So I trust Kate Cassidy. I trust that answers your question. Yes.
The
Okay.
emails page of the newsletter editors club is what she's looking for, it sounds like.
Oh, okay. That's all the way at the end. Very good. We can do that. If that's what you're looking for, I'm there. So this will be recorded. This has all been recorded and it'll be on the ANA website.
Yep.
You don't need to be an ANA member to access this stuff.
That's right. They just need to go to money.org and then the e-learning academy, and they'll be able to connect through to those recorded videos.
Okay. So Greg tells me you can communicate with Q&A. John Gray may have missed it. What's the format of my newsletter? Okay. So we go. So my newsletter pretty much starts with a technical article, followed by followed by a profile, a person profile, followed by our treasurer's report. You know, if you're 501(c), you need to have a report on your treasury every month. The secretary's report on what's going on in the club. Coin cabinet, which is a feature from our president. He writes an article every month talking about what's coming up, what we've done great, what we're going to do great, etc. And then it's followed by dates to remember and the club information page. So, John, I am wondering if I have really answered your question. You can put another question in there and I can answer it.
Yeah.
Or tell me.
Yeah, he is also looking to see, do you send hard copies and email or just the one?
So we, as much as I'd like to go all virtual, we have members who just don't do computers well. So I send out about 50 and a few hard copies of newsletter every month. And then 100 plus newsletters go out over email every month. We have around 180 members in 8 states. And some of them just like things in hard copy, and the majority of people want it in color soft copy. So I can't accommodate them the best I can.
Great. All right. I don't have any more questions popping up. If anybody wants to quickly pop them in there, we can get those to Phil. I do want to remind everybody that we've got more seminars coming up this month. We've have 2 next week and the one after that. So if you would like to check on that, you just go to the money.org site and that e-learning academy tab at the top you can pull down, and you can get everything on how to register like you did here. John wants to know the size.
John wants to know the size of how many of my newsletter.
I think the actual physical size, like 8.5 by 11, or
Yeah. So these are 8.5 by 11 pages. And because I'm still doing some paper copies, I limit the newsletter to eight pages. Some of our guys, David Heinrich, for instance, God bless him, he prints up all of his copies on his copy machines and sends them out, and he prints out as many pages as he wants. Paul in Maryland has a virtual setup, and he goes with as many pages as he wants.
great.
So what else?
Steve was just saying, thank you for your tip on having newsletters at the shows. And then John says, thanks, great presentation. And that's all we have right now.
Okay, well, thankfully, nobody's thrown a rock at me over the internet.
No, you did great, Phil.
I appreciate everybody tuning in. Please do not hesitate to call us or email us with questions, or if we can help you. My telephone works, my internet works. I'm sure that among the 3 of us, we can answer almost any question you have about newsletters and publications and ads and all that other stuff. I want to thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks so much. And thanks everybody for being here. And hopefully we'll see everybody soon.